Hi everyone, this is Stani Dimitrova, violinist, musician's coach, and host of this show, Own Your Voice. You might know this show as an interview series, and we will continue to bring you wonderful interviews. But we're also adding another element where I get to share some insights, questions I've been asked by clients and friends struggling in navigating this complicated, exciting life of a creative. So today we're going to talk about how to deal with disappointment. This is an important element of living a creative life because the more you put yourself out there, the more you take risks, the more you show up in the world as yourself in your most authentic and vulnerable state, you are likely to face disappointment. Of course, as everyone, I experienced a lot of disappointment from skipping an entire line of a concerto soloing in an orchestra, or have really low enrollment in a program I was trying out, um, or saying something really dumb in front of somebody I really admired. I've, I've covered all possible realms of disappointment. And back in my younger days, I used to stay in that feeling a lot. It felt so heavy to carry that feeling around. Back then, I had only two ways to deal with disappointment, and neither of them served me. One was to ignore what had happened. If some situation disappointed me, I disappointed myself. Anything happened, I would kind of brush it off, try to ignore what happened, just try to move on. Either it wasn't meant to be or it didn't matter, just keep going, it's going to be fine. The second way for me to deal with disappointment was to kind of stay and wallow in that sense of disappointment for a really long time. And to the point where I didn't want to do anything and I wanted to give up on everything. And that didn't serve me either. So it really took me years to kind of realize how heavy that sense of disappointment was. Because the truth is that I was carrying it with me everywhere. Even when I thought it was past me and ignored it. Even when I had wallowed in it for a couple of days and then thought, I'm on to the next thing maybe. It still stayed with me. And it also reflected on everything else I was doing. Because I kept this sense of disappointment, the memory of the disappointment, the feeling of disappointment in me at all times. Whenever a challenging situation came up, often that memory of disappointment came up. So I either expected it or would sabotage myself again, or it really took a lot of energy for me to really make sure I ignored those memories of the disappointment. So today I'm going to introduce you to my solution to dealing with disappointment, which I call the Goldilocks solution, since both of the ways I was dealing with disappointment were so extreme. Kind of one was too cool and distant. I tried to ignore disappointment. The other one was too hot and like I was staying too much into the sense of disappointment, just really steeping myself in that feeling. So I needed a Goldilocks solution. I needed something where I really dealt with a problem in a way that I released myself from disappointment. I took whatever I could from it, but then could move on and not carry it with me. So today I'm going to share a little bit what that looks like for me. And it's not one solution, it's more like a few steps that you can apply. And as with everything as creatives, we know you always have to tweak things around to make them work for you. But here's what I'm offering today. A few steps that I found for myself worked really well in dealing with disappointment. So step number one would be to really acknowledge the feeling. Notice how it's making you feel. How does it feel in your body when you're disappointed? And stay with it. Acknowledge it, that that's what happened to you in your body, that you experienced as a result of that situation, of that emotion. Step number two, I call this the 24-hour rule. After you've let yourself experience the emotion, acknowledge how it felt in your body, the emotions that came over you, don't let yourself stay in those emotions for more than 24 hours or until the next morning, whichever comes sooner. Once you do that, if you find yourself going back mentally to that situation, especially if it's something very personal and very hurtful, it's likely that you're going to try to go back to it and relive it over and over again. But here's what I want you to understand. When you do this, every time you let yourself go back and relive this painful disappointment, what you're doing is you're indulging in that feeling by reliving it more and more you're becoming a victim of those emotions, and those feelings are starting to take control over your present. So it's crucial that you start to get that awareness of those emotions are not you. That moment of disappointment is not you. It's something that happened for whatever reason. We'll talk about that too. But it's so important to let go of that emotional baggage that comes with that situation and let it go. And do not allow yourself to indulge in going back to that moment emotionally. If you find yourself going back to it, see yourself as an observer, not as the person in the middle of that situation of disappointment. As an observer, you won't be nearly as emotionally invested. And as an observer, you'll find many more ways to see the situation that might give you some insights on what you can do differently. Step 3, clarity is power. So get clear on what exactly disappointed you. If you're disappointed in yourself, was there anything you could have done to prepare better? What is it that you did leading up to that moment that you could have done differently? Think about what that experience has taught you. If you're disappointed by another person, think about what expectations you have from that person and ask yourself if you could let go of those expectations. Expectations are like a trap. We think it's something we hold up as a rule. We think it's something good to live by, yet they keep us in a cage and they keep us out of the present moment and they keep us out of touch with people where they are. So letting go of expectations is another important mindset shift you might want to explore more if you find yourself disappointed by other people often. If you find yourself disappointed by circumstances, a situation that was out of your control, it's important to know that you can't control your environment. The only thing you can control is how you react to it. So think about how you reacted in this situation, what you could have done differently. Here's an exercise I want you to try out. Play that situation where some circumstances disappointed you. See it as if it's a movie and pretend you are the director of that movie. Come up with 3 different ways you could have acted differently in that situation and play them out in your mind as if it's a movie. Play those 3 different scenarios in your head as vividly as possible. What is this teaching you? What are you learning? What could you take away from this? And how would you react differently in a similar situation in the future? This is really helpful because it gets you to think creatively about the situation and, again, puts you in the observer's seat. You're not a victim of those circumstances, of that moment of disappointment. You are the one in control of that situation and in control of your present. Step number 4 is to turn the page. After you've gone through the first 3 steps, acknowledging the feeling, the 24-hour rule, where you acknowledge the feeling and then completely distance yourself from it and you don't let yourself indulge in it again. And after observing what had happened and what lesson you can take away from that situation, make the choice to literally turn the page. See yourself almost as a new person that has nothing to do with that moment and those emotions and what you experienced. And I'm not talking about ignoring what had happened because you've already taken what you can from that moment. But this is more about making a conscious choice as a habit not to indulge in past moments, especially negative ones. Being aware that this takes away your power in the present moment and takes away your ability to be your best self in the moment and limits what you can do, limits your thinking, limits your actions. In a way, step 4 is all about making a conscious choice, a powerful choice. As I like to say, when you own your choice, you own your voice. So with that, I want to thank you for watching. Let me know if this is helpful. Let me know how you are dealing with disappointment. What have you found helpful? And if any of these steps resonate with you, let me know what comes up. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching and see you soon. Bye.